Here we go. Welcome in, boys and girls, to the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. So good to be with you guys on this good-looking Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Proud to report that, glad to report that. But it's going to be a fun episode here on this weekend warm-up edition of this mighty fine program, and excited to be with you for the next couple hours. Sitting in the saddle, alongside yours truly, Wayne Neely, the one and only David Wilson, who we got two different realms of facial hair going on. I normally gravitate toward yours with the stash, David, but I'm currently in the beard. But I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Mighty fine look right now, my friend. Welcome.
Yeah, it's always great to be joined with you, Wade. It's been a minute, as producer Mark kind of
Yeah.
said before the show. It's been a couple months, but I'm always excited to be with you because you always bring in the energy and the optimism. So I'm ready to go on a Friday. Mustache, yeah, I'm gonna hold on to it for about a 12-hour period, then it's gonna be gone, and it'll be just clean all the way around. I'm not looking forward to that, but that's when work calls. You do what you got to do. But excited about today. Excited for some high school football tonight. I'm sure we'll get into that, and it's a beautiful day here in the mid-state. I believe it was in the 70s. I went and sat on my deck and just took in some sun. That wasn't the case on Monday when we were having those little snow flurries. So happy for some warm weather. I'll take that, especially when you get to the middle of November.
Yeah, I mean, like we alluded to earlier this week, last Thursday, it was freezing cold, and then it warmed up a little bit. Was borderline hot on Saturday, and then boom, flurries Monday. And in Tennessee fashion, just wait a while, and the weather will change. And yeah, it's going to be a very very pleasant night for TSSAA high school football action. Round two of the state playoffs. 76 is what I'm showing as your high this evening or this afternoon. So should be fun, should be pleasant. And we're delighted that you are with us for the next couple hours here, folks, on Main Street Sports Today. Producer Mark Rogers behind the scenes making the magic happen. David, you said it a moment ago. We got a big show lined up today. And you mentioned the optimism and the excitement. That's kind of, yeah, that is a little bit of my MO in general, or at least I try to make it that, but you can't help but be excited about a big Friday show. Coming up in the second hour of the program, we'll get into the grab bag, kind of an extended grab bag segment in hour number two. You don't want to miss it because there is no telling what we're going to pull out. We've got high school football, college football, NFL topics, NBA, NCAA women's basketball, NCAA men's hoops. We got a little bit of everything in that grab bag. But also excited in the second hour, our good friend Eric Henry from Horns 24/7 will give us a preview. Folks might have, I don't know, it kind of snuck up because Texas has those two losses, David, but it kind of snuck up on us in the sense that we got Texas, Georgia this weekend. So excited to chat with our buddy from Horns 24/7 in the second hour.
Yeah, it's a big matchup. Texas right there, on the outside looking in, or really in the last playoff spot in the college football playoff rankings. And they have that leeway with their schedule over the next couple weeks, really starting this weekend down in Athens against Georgia, and then a matchup coming up on Black Friday against Texas A&M. They have an opportunity to play their way into the CFP, which is maybe words that we weren't speaking after their loss down to Florida in the swamp several weeks ago. Arch Manning looking better over the
Yeah.
last couple of weeks. Interested to get his opinion on that. And this offense, if they can score some points, that defense is mighty talented enough to keep them in some games. So interested to get his perspective on all things Hook'em Horns ahead of their big showdown tomorrow night.
Should be fun. We'll also pick Eric's brain on some other games across the landscape of college football. Speaking of college football, coming up, we'll close the show as we do every Friday around this time of the year, the Wonder Slate. And you might be noticing, you might be wondering, David and I mentioned, first time for us on air together in quite some time. But we got to give a tip of the cap to our compadre, Mo Patton, who is out on assignment. And the TSSAA travel schedule, it's been well documented on this show this week. Lengthy assignments is one way to put it. And I don't know if Mo drew the short straw or if that was by design, David, but either way, he set it out to about as far west. He's over in the 901 as Independence and Whitehaven will tangle. So Mo is on assignment today. But don't you worry, folks. Mo has submitted his picks. David will join in as well. All three of us will combine to bring you the Wonder Slate to close it out in hour number two. In hour number one, coming up in just a matter of moments, we'll talk with our friend Ben Arthur from Fox Sports. Little Titans talk, but we'll diverge into more chatter around the AFC South, including obviously the Colts, who have now been supplanted for the best record in the AFC, but they have a chance this weekend to get neck and neck with another squad. We'll talk Jags, we'll talk the Texans, who do come to Nissan Stadium on Sunday, and we'll get other NFL musings from Ben Arthur at Fox Sports. We'll also get into a number of different topics in that grab bag segment. David, like I said, there's really no shortage of things we could pick from. If anything, we almost kind of got a glut of stories, and we're trying to pay service to all of them here on this fine Friday.
We are. It's a big weekend in sports. Obviously, the Titans are coming off their bye. This is the point of the season in the NFL where you have that separation, right? We got Lions, Eagles this weekend in NFL. We got a ton of really good matchups. You mentioned Colts, Chiefs. So we got a good matchups on Sunday. We got some good matchups tomorrow in college football. Don't forget about Oklahoma and Alabama entangling.
Yeah.
Another, kind of CFP matchup. One that we got to watch. College game day is going to be up in Pittsburgh with my Notre Dame Fighting Irish taking on the Pitt Panthers. I'm sure that's the first game on the Wonder Slate, so we'll get to that one. But it's a
Who
good
will win
week of
by
football.
100,
Got
according
some
to Pitt head coach
basketball
Pat
going on.
Narduzzi.
Got some hockey news.
Notre Dame favored by 99,
That's
according to
fine
Coach
with me. No
Narduzzi.
problem
Yeah.
with me.
I love that. We will give our picks then, but you're right, David. So much to cover, including a big set of schedules for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, really, without further ado, folks, now that we kind of got settled in, kind of set the stage for everybody here this afternoon, let's give you a few, and yes, just a few results from last night. But let's bring you this weekend schedule on a little thing we like to call the rundown.
This is the Rundown.
I mentioned a short slate last night. I wasn't kidding, folks. We got two women's college basketball games, a very note to fill you in on. Tennessee defeating Belmont 68-58 in the first one, and it was Lipscomb defeating Johnson 74-49, capping our women's basketball scoreboard from last night. More on this game later, but the Jets, my beloved New York Jets, fell last night to head coach Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots. 27-14 was your final on Thursday Night Football. That was Thursday night. Now let's talk Friday Night Football. Here is your schedule, and round 2 of the TSSAA state playoffs gets underway. All these games are at 7, unless stated otherwise. Munford will be at Beach. Grace Christian Franklin is traveling to Boyd Buchanan. Look for MBA at Brentwood Academy. Joe Burns on the road at Coalfield. Antioch at Collierville should be an epic showdown over in West Tennessee tonight. Knox Central is coming to Murray County to take on the Columbia Lions. Sycamore will be at Covington this evening, way over in West Tennessee. It'll be Blackman at Dobbins Bennett. Peabody is at East Robertson. CPA traveling to Innsworth. East Nashville's on the road at Fairleigh. Other games, Dyersburg at Fairview. Silverdale Academy is at Franklin Road Academy this evening. McMinn Central will come to the Brickyard to take on the Giles County Bobcats tonight at 7. BGA is at Grace Christian Knoxville. Science Hill is at Green Hill. And Nolansville on the road tonight at Henry County.
Keeping the slate going for some TSSAA high school football playoff action, round number 2. Lawrence County at Knoxville Halls. Once again, these are all 7 p.m. starts. Riverdale making the trip out east to take on Maryville in a great matchup in Class 6A. Maplewood at Memphis Melrose. Centennial at Memphis Central. Eagleville also making the trip to West Tennessee to take on Middle College. It's Mount Pleasant at Milan. Jackson Christian coming to Sawyer Brown Roan to take on the National Christian Eagles. It's Bradley Central making the trip to the Borough to take on the Oakland Patriots. It's Kirkwood at Page, Crockett County at Pearl Cone, Friendship Christian at PCA. That one's tonight at Floyd Stadium at MTSU. Yours truly will be on the sidelines for that. Be sure to tune in at the Wilson Post and the Chronicle of Mount Juliet, Tonight, down on the south side of town, it's Houston at Ravenwood. It's South Fulton at Richland, Spring Hill at South Gibson, Brentwood at Southwind, Lexington at Springfield up at the Nest. It's Middle Tennessee Christian making the trip to West Tennessee to take on Trinity Christian. It's DCA at the University School of Jackson. It's Westmoreland at Westview and Independence at Whitehaven. Once again, Mo Patton on the scenes for that. In women's college basketball action, 12 p.m. tip this afternoon between Trevecca at Berry. It's UT Southern versus Campbellsville University in the UC Bank Classic in Columbia, Kentucky. That was a 5 p.m. first tip tonight. It's TSU at UT Arlington, also a 5 p.m. tip. In Toca Falls at Cumberland University, 5:30 tip off there in Lebanon. In men's basketball action, it's Wright State Lake at the campus at Fisk. That is a 6 p.m. first tip. Out in Germany, or excuse me, in Sweden, it is the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Nashville Predators. Their first puck drop was at 1 o'clock. That is 0-0 in the second period. You can find that one on FanDuel Sports. Saturday action in women's basketball: UT Southern versus Lindsey Wilson, once again up in Columbia, Kentucky. That is a 3 p.m. tip-off. Trevecca at Lynn University, that is a 2 p.m. start. MTSU at Rice, 2 p.m. once again on ESPN+. In men's basketball action, Austin Peay at UNC Greensboro, 1 p.m. on ESPN+. It's Arkansas Pine Bluff at Vanderbilt, 2 p.m. on the SEC Network Plus. Palm Beach Atlantic at Trevecca, that is a 4 o'clock tip-off. Lindsey Wilson at UT Southern, also a 4 o'clock tip. And Bryan at Lipscomb, 4 o'clock tip on ESPN+. Belmont at Oral Roberts, 7 p.m. is the nightcap on the men's basketball slate.
Loaded slate on the hardwood, in addition to the games played on the gridiron tomorrow. And here are a couple of local football matchups for you. Sanford will come to Clarksville to take on Austin Peay. That is a 1 p.m. kickoff. You can see it on ESPN+. Gardner Webb is visiting TSU at 1:30 tomorrow over here at Nissan Stadium. That also will be on ESPN+. But wait, there's more. If you got ESPN Plus or ESPN Unlimited, you're in business this weekend, because at 2:30, MTSU, 100 Miles of Hate, will be at Western Kentucky. Best of luck to the Blue Raiders, all I'm going to say on that. 3:15, we round out our local schedule at least. New Mexico State is at Tennessee. And again, you can see that one on the SEC Network. Coming down the home stretch here, NBA action on Saturday, a rare 4 p.m. tip-off, but it's a big showdown as the Grizzlies, who are stinking up the joint right now, trying to get back to good when they travel to Cleveland. Best of luck to the Grizz at 4 o'clock on Saturday. NBA TV or FanDuel Sports South will get you there for your TV coverage. NHL action. David referenced the Global Series a moment ago. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in just a second. But the Preds and Penguins will tangle once more in Sweden. That puck drop on Sunday morning, yes, is set for 8 a.m. You can see it on the NHL Network or FanDuel Sports South. David was thinking, he referenced Germany earlier. I think he was in NFL mode. There is a NFL game in addition to the Texans and Titans at noon on Fox. They're going to play in Madrid for the first time in a regular season capacity this weekend, as the Commanders get ready for NFL action. And I completely forgot who the Commanders were playing. This is beautiful radio here, folks. This is why you don't ad-lib too much. They play the Dolphins. There we go. There's a reason I forgot that. But they play the Dolphins International Series on Sunday. More games on the hardwood to close this out, folks. Sunday afternoon women's basketball action begins at noon on ESPN+. Belmont is at Dayton. At 1 p.m., it'll be Indiana State at Austin Peay. Lipscomb is at Mississippi Valley State. That's actually a 4 p.m. Tip-off. Fisk will be at UT Martin, set to tangle at 2 p.m. And one men's basketball game of area interest at 4 o'clock on Sunday. It'll be Embry-Riddle taking on Trevecca. Ladies and gentlemen, big old schedule. A few results from last night, but you put it all together, and that concludes our Friday rundown. Top story, folks, brought to you as always by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly over at Neely's Mill in Columbia. Make sure that you check them out for your delicious daily deli lunch options. They also offer hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. They're open from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Once again, Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill in Columbia, bringing you your top story. David, you referenced it a minute ago, right? The Preds, not only are they in Sweden, not only are they playing, they're playing right now. A 1 p.m. showdown this afternoon versus the Penguins. They'll get it on again, as I referenced, on Sunday at 8. Couple of games across the pond. Maybe a little out of sight, out of mind in that sense for the Preds, who we've talked about on this show, have not been playing well by any stretch of the imagination. But a chance, to kind of take your talents abroad. And if the hockey community embraces these games like they do the International Basketball Series and the obviously the NFL games, I think they'll go home happy regardless of who wins these two games. As David referenced, it was scoreless after one period earlier.
Yeah, I mean, don't be remiss to say that this is a very big 2-game stretch overseas for the Predators, you're looking to, find any kind of momentum, Andrew Brunette has been on the record saying that this is an important 2-game stretch for us as we try to, kind of turn our season around. I know it's early. We're just in the middle of November, but, things can get pretty late for teams. You don't want to have to go on a massive run like the Predators did a couple years ago just to make the playoffs. We're still kind of seeing where we're at on this team. Just talking to a couple media personnel that cover this team on a day in and day out basis. Once again, it feels like that toaster for Andrew Brunette is turned up again. We felt it last year. There were some days where it's not if then when, but we'll see what happens. Like I said, this is a team that's not played its best hockey over the last week and a half, and so we will see what unfolds in Sweden. But a good opportunity where you see on your screen right here, Philip Forsberg, a native of Sweden, not necessarily in his hometown, but he is in his home country. So maybe some juju there to get him going. We get the Preds 2 wins on international ice.
Absolutely. No, I failed miserably in my hosting duties to welcome our Swedish audience members to this program. And I'm going to attempt my best, but I think it's "Hey son" or "Hey son" is the Swedish greeting for hello. That's about as much as I got, according to Google Translate, at least. So welcome to everybody that's tuned in. And yes, hopefully the Preds, will give the fans a little something to cheer about. Obviously, if the Preds aren't your cup of tea overseas, then you got Sidney Crosby and the Penguins, who are better than the Preds. They're not to probably elite levels that fan base would expect or kind of want, but they definitely are going to be the favorite in these two games. As we mentioned, they're about halfway through period number 2, but hopefully Nashville. Dave, you made a great point. Yeah, it's cool, and you're going abroad and you're doing these cool things. We'll talk about Forsberg and the cool stuff he's doing in just a second. But amidst all that, this is a team that needs wins any way, shape, form, or fashion. I don't care if they're playing at Municipal Auditorium or they're playing over at the Avicii Arena, which is pretty awesome, by the way, over in Sweden, in Stockholm. If you don't come back with at least one win, you'd like to get 2. But, man, if you come back somehow dropping both of these, all that kind of cool momentum that you got with this international game or games kind of goes by the wayside.
I mean, yeah, it's a trip that you want to enjoy. You like playing in front of new venues and expanding the game, bringing new eyes to the sport and allowing people of Sweden to see these players play. But it's a business trip at the same time, though. And for this
Yeah.
team in particular, over the last couple of years, they have not gotten off to great starts with Andrew Brunette. And, he's kind of tied to the hip of Barry Trotz, who's obviously in his first run as GM of the Predators. Obviously, they're a former longtime coach. So, like I said, there is some pressure there. So maybe they have sense that pressure to perform, facing a historic franchise in the Pittsburgh Penguins, who they saw in the Stanley Cup Finals close to almost now a decade ago. But it's a very important 2-game stretch for the Preds out in Sweden.
Absolutely. And although the game has already gotten underway now, hopefully producer Mark's got this on hand, because we did want to share. Forsberg is back in his native land, and he's doing a lot of cool stuff. Most importantly, perhaps, he's linked up with the NHL. He's linked up with the Players Association, and he's donating 20 full sets of equipment, which hockey equipment. Not that I would have been any good anyway, David, but the cost or barrier to entry in terms of just finances to play hockey is through the roof. So 20 sets of equipment is going to be handed out by Forsberg and part of the NHL player initiative there overseas, which is awesome. That's pretty cool. But what was really bonkers today, courtesy of the Nashville Preds Twitter account, their Swedish outfits, I don't know that I would have necessarily known or thought of this kind of as your default. But at producer Mark, if we got a second link there, if we could pull up the fit that Forsberg rolled into the Avicii Arena with today, this is interesting, and it's maybe going to be worth the wait, folks.
If you're going overseas and you're going to be in a place like that, you have to dress for the scene and for the occasion, right? So, I mean, it has to be a must.
Absolutely. And we're going to try and get that. I think it's in that middle link there in the top story on our run of show. But because the hat alone, the hat, kind of the socks, the shoes, certainly, Forsberg's got it going on. This is the all-time Preds NHL goal scorer. I mean, he leads the franchise in tallies. And so He's obviously wanting to put on a good show. The Preds are wanting to put on a good show. I mean, check out the fit right there. Like I said, I don't know what a Swedish traditional outfit would have really looked like. That was probably not what I was thinking, David, but it's swaggy, if nothing else. Forsberg rolling in with some pep in his step today.
He's rocking it, and you mentioned my mustache. Well, he's got a glorious one as well.
Yeah.
So it just adds aura with the hat and with the outfit. So he's looking good and ready to go. You look good, you feel good, you play good, right? So hopefully the Preds can get a good performance from him out of these next two periods and, come out with a win in the first of the 2-game stretch over there in Sweden.
It'd be nice. We'll keep you guys apprised of the goings-ons over at the Avicii Arena as the show continues here. But again, it was scoreless halfway through the second period over there as the Preds take on the Penguins. They'll do it again on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. But for now, we're going to send it to a timeout. When we come back, we're going to shift gears. Already talked one professional franchise here in Music City. We'll talk about the Tennessee Titans after this break with our good friend Ben Arthur from Fox Sports. All things Titans, AFC South, and more on the other side of this break. You are listening and watching Main Street Sports Today, where we're presented by TOA of Columbia. Back after this.
Got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
3-3.
Bee, oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now
busy
I'm ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today. We're presented, as always, by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We are off and running, boys and girls. It's going to be a big show today, and we're excited to dive straight in to some NFL chatter, especially in the AFC South. Been a while since, at least me personally, have caught up with our good friend Ben Arthur from Fox Sports. So, if nothing else, Ben, we're just glad to see you here on this Friday. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you, Wade? It's been a minute, like you said, so I'm glad to be back on.
We're pumped to have you. I know you're going to bring the goods when we talk a little Titans, AFC South, a little Texans, Colts, NFL at large. But yeah, you and I, we were playing phone tag a little bit, trying to get you on here, trying to get you on there. Wires got crossed, and but I knew it would work out eventually, and that's why you're the best in the biz. So, Ben, we thank you for joining us, and I guess let's just dive right in. We've talked a couple of times this week on this show about kind of the quote, what is there to play for factor for the Titans. And if nothing else, there's a rivalry game when the Texans come rolling in on Sunday. Out of the bye, I'm just kind of curious what you have learned or what you've kind of felt thus far from the team that is seemingly going nowhere, but still has half of its season left to play.
Yeah, I think for me, as long as you keep seeing development from Cam Ward, I think that's a positive, right? In a season that isn't really going anywhere. Um, I think a lot of these guys, like you mentioned, like the record wise, maybe playoffs, all that is out of the question. But a lot of guys play for money in the off season and everything. So a lot of guys are still motivated to give their best showing. And I think when you have had a week off, and you're in another game where no one is really thinking you're going to do much, and you look on the other side and the starting quarterback isn't going to play, and you have Jeffrey Simmons coming back, you have Calvin Ridley coming back, you have Arden Key coming back, all of a sudden you have something to somewhat look forward to, right? And I know the Texans have the best scoring defense in the NFL, and they were the team that held the Titans to 0 points the last time they played. So that's definitely something to monitor in terms of like, can this offense, which isn't very good, actually do anything? But I think there are several reasons to kind of look forward to this from the Titans' perspective in terms of just like how they maybe look energized coming out of this bye, getting some of those guys back, like I mentioned, and then Cam Ward's continued progression, as I alluded to.
We've got the Texans coming in, Ben, and they're a team that has been kind of fascinating to me all season. You joined us a number of times in the preseason. Even we talked and joked about their offensive line struggles and how they might look, and they got off to a rough start. But the defense, as you mentioned a moment ago, has been top notch from start to finish. They pulled a real Houdini though last week, knocking off the Jags, scoring 26 points in the fourth quarter, including a touchdown at the end of the game on kind of a walk-off capacity. I'm curious, let's put the Titans to the side for a second now. What do you like about the Texans, a team that's still kind of trying to work its way back into playoff discussion at the moment?
Well, when you have a Super Bowl caliber defense, you're in any game.
Yeah.
So I think that certainly helps. And it was definitely uncharacteristic for them, those first three quarters, for them to even be in that position. In the first place, you figured that offense was going to struggle without Stroud having Davis Mills in there. But yeah, I think down the stretch, they did their job. I believe the Jags only had 11 yards of offense in the fourth quarter. So we know the offense had to do the scoring there with Davis Mills, but the defense was able to kind of get back to what we know this defense to be. And I think whenever you have a defense like that, you're going to give yourself a chance to win ball games, regardless of what the offense looks like. And that's kind of been the theme for the Texans all year, is that the offense hasn't really quite been good enough, apart from maybe a game or two. And the defense has held up its end of the bargain. And so I think if you're the Texans, that's kind of what you're going into this game banking on, and winning with defense. Hopefully you get more out of the run game. And then I think some of their younger receivers have really come on, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Both those Iowa State receivers have been able to do some good things for that offense as of late. So I know they've been depending on those guys more and more over time. But yeah, I think for them, Wade, it really starts with the defense. And when you go up against a team like the Titans, who really struggle to score points, to sustain drives, to do anything once they cross midfield, I think you have to feel really good about yourself if you're Houston heading into this game.
Ben, this game the first time around down in Houston, it was, I believe, 6-0 at halftime. Not a lot of offensive fireworks. And you kind of mentioned last week, at least in the fourth quarter, Houston offensively was able to catch some fire with Davis Mills back there, really connecting with Nico Collins, who's really, a talented wide receiver, one of the best in NFL. Have a really good backfield tandem in Woody Marks and Nick Chubb as well. So offensively, they kind of caught some fire. So defensively, if you're the Titans, how do you kind of attack that group, particularly that offensive line unit that is, forced some pressures throughout the season?
I think it's going to take creativity, a continued effort to be more creative. I mean, Denard Wilson is, I kind of feel bad for him just because of what, especially up front, what he's had to deal with, right? Like entering the year, we knew they weren't really going to be all that good, but then you miss Arden Key for a lot of time. You miss Jeffrey Simmons for a lot of time. Femi Aladejo has been on IR for weeks. L'Jarius Sneed on IR. You trade Jarvis Brownlee Jr. You trade Roger McCreary. So you just don't really have a lot of guys to work with. You're just kind of plugging and playing guys. And I think it's just going to take a creative effort, right? In terms of maybe more blitzes, different kind of pressure looks, whatever, to kind of throw Davis Mills off his game a bit. Because I think you look at the edge rushers for the Titans, it's going to certainly help having Jeffrey Simmons back, applying pass rush presence from the interior line. But you don't have Draymond. I didn't even mention Draymond Jones, who they also traded. You just don't know what you're going to get from the edge rushers, and so I do expect some creativity. And the Texans O line has kind of been up and down all year, so yeah, I am looking out for that in terms of just some creativity in terms of getting after the quarterback.
I'm going to switch over to the Titans offensive line per se and talk about JC Latham. He's a guy that I'm sure not only the media but fans are going to keep their eye on over the next stretch of games, probably throughout the end of the season. Obviously, was injured to start the year. The Titans offensive line has had some pieces go around. I believe they have given up the most sacks in the NFL, and all those might not necessarily fall on the offensive line. Cam Ward has kind of admitted that some of those are on him as well from not holding the ball or not getting rid of the ball and holding on to it. So first, give me your thoughts on J.C. Latham and what you want to see from him over the next couple months, and then that Titans offensive line as a whole, which they tried to solve this past offseason signing Kevin Zeitler and adding Dan Moore Jr. It seems like Peter Skronsky and Lloyd Cushenberry have kind of held their own on that kind of triangle from the center and the left guard perspective. But your thoughts on Latham and the group as a whole?
Yeah, you definitely would have liked to see Latham be further ahead at this point, especially after a rookie year where he did show promise. But like you mentioned, he did have the injury early on and had a couple moments. I think it was like that Raiders game in particular where it's like, whoa, that wasn't good at all against Max Crosby. And then it's kind of been up and down since that point. And so kind of like with a lot of these young guys on this team, you just want to see continued progress. I think, as you mentioned, who is it? Peter Skronsky, Lloyd Cushenberry. You have this is a better offensive line than we've seen the last couple years. I mean, the total product isn't great. I'm not saying it's great by any means right now, but it is a little bit better than we've seen. And I think honestly, Skronsky has been playing at borderline all pro level. I mean, he's really, really, really playing at a high level right now. And so I think if Latham can continue like this last stretch, right? You're coming out the bye, you're re-energized. If over these final, what is it, 7-8 weeks or so, he can really reestablish himself, would pay major dividends for this offense. But I think the key point you mentioned earlier too was a lot of it is on Cam, right? Like he does need to get the ball out quicker, make quicker decisions, maybe take the check down, maybe not having to play hero ball as much or waiting for things to develop in a way that maybe he got away with at Miami that you can't in the NFL. And so while it is on Latham, it is also on Cam too. So that's just the synergy between the O-line and the quarterback. So we'll see. I mean, it's not going to be an easy week to get it going. I mean, Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter that's as good as it gets. So it's not going to be an easy task, but yeah, I think if he could continue to just make positive strides and not hurt, I think if this offense can stay on schedule, like without the penalties and the big sacks, they're going to have a chance. And so I think that's kind of what it comes down to for them.
Talking with Ben Arthur, our good friend from NFL on Fox, about the Titans-Texans tangle here Sunday at Nissan Stadium. One final one on that I wanted to ask Ben is, this game kind of reminds me, with such an elite defense on the opposite side of the ball in Houston, I'm just really trying to struggle or figure out, the path to victory is something I always try and think about with these games. And are the Titans simply going to be able to score enough points outside of maybe a fluke defensive or special teams touchdown like we saw in the final game before the bye? I'm just curious, do they have the goods back with Ridley, et cetera, to maybe muster up enough points to scratch out a win in your mind?
Offensively, honestly, Wade, I don't think they have it. Even with Ridley coming back, I think it's really going to have to take another strong effort from the defense, from special teams. I don't know if you can count on special teams getting touchdowns. That would certainly help, just with the way Chim DK has been playing. But I think having Jeff back is really going to make a massive difference in terms of that pressure from the interior pocket for Davis Mills, maybe forcing him into some rush throws, helping out a secondary and linebacker core that we know just has kind of struggled. And so I think it's going to take kind of giant efforts from those two sides of the ball to support the offense, because we kind of know what the offense is at this point, and having Ridley hasn't made a difference, to be honest, and he's been very inconsistent as well. So it'd be nice if they contributed too, and they're going to have to do their part. But I think it's going to take a big effort from defense and special teams to beat Houston.
I'm with you there. Yeah, maybe if nothing else, give them a short field, lead to some,
Exactly.
even if you just stack up some field goals. Vegas has the Titans total at 15.5. So I'm also kind of scratching my head. I don't know.
I don't even know they can get to that.
Yeah, it feels like a 10-12 outside of, a score or very short field via the turnover. Ben, let's shift gears real quick and talk about, they're no longer really the darlings of the AFC South per se, but the Colts, man, I still am just kind of scratching my head about these guys. But finally this week, we might get a real chance to see who the real Indianapolis Colts are. I'm curious your thoughts as they get ready for a massive showdown coming up this weekend.
Yeah, the Colts, I mean, their offense is legit. I'll say that. Their offense.
Hey, real quick, sorry. Excuse me. I misspoke. They're on bye week. Next week is the week that they have the Chiefs, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, they're on bye this week. Chiefs.
We'll just bring you back on this time next week, and everything that I just said will make sense then. So
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think, but like I was saying, I do think the Colts offense is legit. I mean, with the way Jonathan Taylor is playing, with the way that that offensive line deserves a lot of credit. Like some of the holes they're creating for him, I feel like you could fit a truck in there. Like that's how big those holes are for him. And that doesn't take anything away from Jonathan Taylor, who's a top 3 back in the NFL, even before what he was doing this season. But you combine that with a really deep group of pass catchers, Josh Downs, Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce. I think three of them are at least over 500 receiving yards. So, I mean, Daniel Jones has the weapons. They have the run game. They have the O-line. I know Daniel Jones has kind of turned the ball over a bit these past couple games for them. I know he's at 7 turnovers in the last 2 games. But I do think this offense is legit. I think the question for me is the defense. They've kind of had to do enough to win games. And now they don't have DeForest Buckner for at least the next 3 games. He's on IR with a neck injury. And I know that you just add Sauce, right? Like things are starting to come together, and then you lose probably the best player on the team outside of Jonathan Taylor in Buckner, who's really the root of everything they do defensively in terms of the pass rush, in terms of the run game, in terms of leadership. And then losing him is going to put a lot more pressure on that back end too. So I think the verdict is still out on that defense, and going up against the Chiefs after the bye, going up against Patrick Mahomes and that offense, is going to be a really big test for them, especially without Buckner. So I think the jury is still out for me on them, but I do think this offense is elite. I don't think what we've seen to this point is a fluke. I do think they're as great as they've shown us to be.
Ben, we got a couple of games in the NFC this weekend that have some postseason importance and maybe some divisional importance as well out in the NFC West. We'll start off with the Seattle Seahawks on the Los Angeles Rams out in SoFi. A battle of 7-2 teams. Sam Darnold taking on Matthew Stafford. I think both of those could have a case to be MVP right now, and as well in the conversation with Jonathan Taylor. What are you looking forward to about that matchup between two really good offenses that can score points in a hurry?
There are two really good defenses in that matchup too, and so I think that really amplifies that matchup as well. I mean, what Mike McDonald has been able to do for that defense in Seattle, and then the Rams, I believe, are number 2 or 3 in scoring defense right now, and so I think for me, it's like, okay, like, is Sam Darnold gonna do his thing like we've seen him do throughout the year? I think because Matthew Stafford is a quarterback I trust in big games, in big moments. He has the reputation, the resume, the pedigree. But we kind of saw this with Sam Darnold last year, right? He looked phenomenal all year, and then in the games that mattered most, it was a flop, right? It was that Week 18 game against the Lions, if you guys remember, and then the playoff game. I don't remember who it was. I think it was it the Lions again in the divisional? I don't remember off the top of my head. But long story short,
it was against the Rams.
Oh, Rams. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah. And again, we've seen Sam Darnold take another step this year in terms of, okay, like, people thought, okay, leaving Minnesota, what appears to be a worse supporting cast, and then he comes in and he's balling out once again, right? But now it's like we're getting down the stretch here again. And is he going to keep playing at the level he's been at, like you mentioned, like an MVP level, or is he going to kind of regress again, like in the games that matter most? And so I think that's the biggest thing I'm watching for, because otherwise both these teams, I don't really see weaknesses in these teams. I mean, Rams special teams can kind of have their hiccup here and there, but offensively and defensively, both as good as it gets in terms of the NFC, if not the whole league. And so I want to see, like, can Sam Darnold meet the moment against, like, going blow to blow with Matthew Stafford? That's what I want to see.
Yeah, and the second matchup of that kind of NFC showdown in prime time, it's at the Link on Sunday Night Football. The Detroit Lions and obviously Jared Goff and the crew taking on Jalen Hurts and the defending world champions. Dan Campbell took over play calling last week in Washington as the Lions got a big win. Obviously, that's a big matchup. It seems like there's a lot of drama in Philly with A.J. Brown and that offense getting going. Kind of a old school kind of game this past weekend. Against Green Bay on Monday Night Football. What's your thoughts on that matchup between, once again, two teams that are trying to get to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's the AJ Brown thing. Like, is this gonna kind of be nipped in the bud, or is it going to continue to get louder? Because we've kind of seen it go from maybe AJ being a little bit more cryptic or whatever to, like, this past week. It kind of exploded a bit more in terms of him going on that Twitch stream, and then him speaking to reporters in Philly this past week, him saying, quote, what was it? If you have eyes, you can kind of see what's kind of been going on. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but this is the kind of thing that can derail what's otherwise a great team, because everything from the outside, like, any other team, especially a team like the Titans, they would be thrilled to be 7-2, right? Like, and to have this much noise, this much apparent dysfunction, at least from the outside looking in, I don't think that's a good sign. And I think AJ does have some valid points. I know in that scrum with reporters in Philly, he was talking about how you can't just put a Band-Aid on and, like, not actually get to the root of what's, like, causing the bleeding or whatever. Like, you have to be able, like, the process has to improve. You can't just get the result of a win and be like, okay, we did our job. You have to look at the process, and the process for them offensively does not look good at all. Saquon's rushing averages, the efficiency, whatever metric you want to look at, is basically 60%, if that, of what it was last year. The passing game is not good at all. The defense, I mean, the defense, I think, has that juice now that they made those pass rush reinforcements. We saw what Jalen Phillips did to the Packers on Monday Night Football this past week. And so I think the arrow is trending up for that defense, but offensively, they really got to figure it out because they have all the talent in the world, right? But for whatever reason, it's not clicking. And so I think I'm concerned about Philly for sure.
It's going to be interesting, right, Ben? Because you mentioned they're sitting there at 7-2. A number of franchises would, kill to be in their spot. But to me, it just feels like they're going to get by and maybe drop one, maybe two at the most games. And really, it'll just come down to what happens in the playoffs in terms of how we write their story this year. All that drama and all that extracurricular could be put to the side if they go on another run like we saw last season. Whereas if they flame out, it feels like we already kind of know how the story will go in that case. So I don't know. They're fascinating in that sense that even though we have kind of all this pocket of data, we can't really, at least I can't really make or know what to make of it until we see some real pressure cooker situations, which will bubble up, I suppose, down the stretch. Ben, before we get you out of here, anything else we missed? This is a big week. Feels like we've had a couple of leaner NFL slates, but man, especially that NFC West game that David referenced earlier, Seahawks and Rams. That's one that I'm pumped for. What else did we miss?
I'm trying to think what else is on the schedule for this.
Chiefs Broncos is going to be pretty epic. The 3 o'clock window is going to be insane, I feel like, on Sunday.
Yeah. That Broncos defense is something special. I mean, we mentioned the Texans defense earlier because they're facing the Titans, but I think, to me, it's either Broncos or Texans. Either one you could say is the best defense in the NFL. And kind of like what we're talking about, offensive issues with the Eagles. I mean, they have very real offensive issues in Denver too. And the defense has been winning them games all year. Bo Nix looks like he's regressed. That offense isn't really clicking. I don't know if he and Nix and Sean Payton are really on the same page, but because of that defense, they're going to be in every game. And can the offense do just enough? Because that defense is probably going to hold the other team to like 15 points. So I think that's a big one.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Chiefs are favored by 3.5 in that showdown. Again, in that second slate of kickoffs, you got Seahawks, Rams, and you got Chiefs, Broncos. The television remote will be getting a workout at the Neely household on Sunday. I can promise you that. Ben Arthur of NFL on Fox joining us. Don't be a stranger. We'll try and link you up with you again here soon. And I promise the next time we talk, Ben, the Colts will actually be playing this week. So
sounds good.
Don't hold that against me. Thank you for your time, brother.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. See you soon. That was Ben Arthur, once again, our good friend from Fox Sports, talking all things AFC South. David, he's right. I mean, two things, starting with the Titans and the local angle here. Unless they get a defensive turnover, big special teams play, I'm just not even saying if the Titans came out and played their best offensive game of the year, they're still going up against one of the, if not the best defensive units. I'm just struggling to find the points for them offensively, even if they play great on Sunday.
Well, a couple weeks ago, they got those things. They got the special teams touchdown and they got the defensive touchdown, and they still
in the same game
didn't win. In the same game, didn't win against the Chargers. So it's tough sledding for that offense. You think about the wide receiving core. Had lost Calvin Ridley for a while. Cam Ward, we mentioned, taking a lot of sacks, whether it's on him or the offensive line. There's still sacks, right? And they put you behind the chains. So it's been tough sledding. And so we'll see what it will be like. But, when you're going up against a defense like that, the possessions and the opportunities are going to be at a premium. So for the Titans, it's staying in those second and third and manageables and not putting their rookie quarterback so far behind the chains where they're either going to play coverage or they're going to come after him and put him in situations where he might turn the football over.
I'm oddly fascinated by the Titans game because, the Texans record is not the best, but it is a rivalry game and you got some pieces coming back. The season is pretty much escaped you outside of talent development, but could be fun. I think it'll be maybe a little Nissan magic. They have not won a home game in a long time, over a calendar year. So it'd be nice to get one on Sunday. David and I are going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll wrap up hour number 1 with a dip into the grab bag. Got some MLB awards to discuss. We got some other odds and ends. It's all part of our final segment here on the opening hour of Main Street Sports Today. We're presented this afternoon by TOA of Columbia. Back after this.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable, local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Right back to it, boys and girls. You're watching Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented, as always, by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade Neely here, David Wilson there. Our producer, as always, the one and only Mark Rogers. David, could not have you on this show and could not link with you to discuss a little baseball goss. You and Mo dabbled into some of these waters earlier in the week, but the MLB awards, they've officially... It's good news, bad news. It's good news in the sense that we see the cool achievements handed out, but it's bad news because until free agency, until, hot stove season, winter meetings, and then pitchers and catchers reporting, it's kind of the official end of what was a crazy 2025 MLB season.
Yeah, it is. I feel like MLB free agency just takes so long. The free agency period opened just a couple days after the World Series. I believe this is day 8 or 9. We don't have a significant signing yet. Normally in other sports, there's a frenzy and a rush for people to put pen to paper and ink new contracts. And, for baseball, it just slowly simmers until we get to the winter meetings. And, they just had the GM meetings in Las Vegas. We'll see what happens. I know the Braves team of note for Calvin and Wade, or excuse me, Calvin, Mo, and I. Your Astros as well are probably going to need to make some moves this offseason and try to get back in contention to make the playoffs in the World Series. We're both in the same boat. Been a minute since the Braves and Houston had both been outside the playoff picture, but it's a slow simmer on the hot stove. I'm sure we'll get into MLB awards in the sense of Aaron Judge wins MVP yet again in the AL. Ohtani unanimous in NL. I was rooting for Cal Raleigh, really close in that American League voting, but Aaron Judge is more than deserving of the honor yet again. He's the captain.
That was the one, obviously, that's the lightning rod issue, and that's one that, I wanted to kind of pick your brain on because, man, as good of a season, a historic season that Cal Raleigh had for a franchise, that needed kind of some juice, he certainly brought it. He seemingly did everything he could. And, the easy thing to say is, well, Judge won, he's kind of the household name. He plays for the Yankees, et cetera, et cetera. But, Cal Raleigh did everything he could, and he still couldn't get it done because Judge had a historic season in his own right. It was fun as a purely neutral observer to watch those two kind of duke it out. They were really going toe to toe for the last 2 months of the season, it felt like.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Judge, a 331 batting average, hit 53 home runs. He's more than deserving, once again, of being an AL MVP winner. I mean, he's literally one of the best in the world at what he does. But for me, I think the thing that put Cal Raleigh over the top in my mind is not only did the Mariners win their division for the first time since Calvin White was born, as I mentioned yesterday on the show, to do it as a switch hitter, to do it as a primary catcher, logging all those innings. I mean, the value that he brings to his team. I know it's a regular season award, right? But that team, made a deep run in the postseason and made it to the ALCS. They had a magical season. It felt like that would have been the kind of the cherry on top for him to win AL MVP. But like I said, Aaron Judge is a deserving champion of that. But I think the sentimental favorite and the kind of the underdog story would have been to see Kyle Raleigh win it.
Yeah, if you're not a Yankees fan or, a Yankees supporter or just a New Yorker, it'd been hard pressed not to root for Raleigh. And again, it was such a fun battle. And it kind of felt like Judge was going to win, so I wasn't necessarily shocked. But, man, it would have been cool to see for those reasons that you just mentioned a moment ago. You mentioned Ohtani, unanimous MVP, fourth time, 3 of them consecutively. This guy is just racking up awards left and right. The only thing he didn't really do this year, David Wilson, is he didn't win the Cy Young in the National League, as we have discussed already. Tarek Skubal in the AL, and then Paul Skeens, speaking of Yankees, by the way, over in the NL wins that award. And so puts the bow on a baseball season. I know you and Mo and even Calvin not only discussed, but also celebrated Drake Baldwin and the great season that he has. We talked about the local connection there with Nick Kurtz for the Athletics. It was a fun baseball season. I listened to a national podcast earlier this week that does not talk a lot about baseball, and even they were kind of still gushing about the World Series. Those games were so fun. I don't know what that translates to. The ratings obviously were off the charts for currently, but I don't know what that does and propels fans for next year in terms of the regular season. But I'm kind of scratching, my arms and looking around and saying, where's my World Series? Because those games, I kind of wanted, now that I got 7, I kind of wanted 14 at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly one of the all-time great World Series, at least of my lifetime, right? You think about the audiences that you brought in. Not only did you have all of Canada rooting for Toronto,
Yeah.
you have obviously the Dodgers, who are big within the United States, and then you have Ohtani, Yamamoto bringing in that Japanese market. So it was kind of that good, kind of steady mix, and it made really entertaining TV. I think Toronto is still kicking themselves. It feels like they were the ones that should have won the World Series. Obviously, the Dodgers, you'll take it any way you can get it. But I know Toronto, there's going to be some time to heal that wound. Because, you never know when that opportunity is going to come again. You just really don't. There is no guarantee. You always think, hey, we'll make it back. We'll be there next year. That's not always a guarantee. It's such a momentum sport. Teams catch fire at the right time. And so we'll see what stands for the Toronto Blue Jays moving forward. They got some free agency decisions to make, too, with some key players.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, more on their payroll because they kind of got painted in the World Series, David, as this scrappy underdog squad. But I mean, they were a top 10 payroll franchise, and they even made a run at Ohtani, obviously, before he ends up coming to LA. So all that being said, though, it is, to your point, not a guarantee by any stretch that they will even make it to the World Series, let alone come as close as they can. Got a real good friend, a Main Street colleague of ours, our photographer in Pulaski, Guy Schaefer, who's he's from the west side of Canada, but he loves his Blue Jays. And I've been scared to text old Guy because I'm just worried about his emotional well-being. But I have been told he's okay, even though I've been scared to text him just a little bit. Good stuff there with our MLB award winners kind of officially coming to a close. And again, Ohtani and Judge, kind of imagine that, but they are your respective MVPs out of the National League and the American League. That brings us to the top of the hour. We got just a smidge into the grab bag there, but what that means is we got a stuffed bag full of goodies here for hour number 2. We're also going to talk to our friend Eric Henry from Horns 24/7, and at the end of our second hour, we've got 10 college football games that yours truly, David and Mo, will pick against the spread as part of the Wonder Slate. You're not going to want to miss hour number 2 of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia, and that begins right after this.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2, boys and girls, here on Main Street Sports Today, where we're presented each and every single afternoon by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, begins right now. Alongside David Wilson and producer Mark Rogers, Wade Neely saying good afternoon. We just spoke with Ben Arthur, our good friend from NFL on Fox, talking all things pro football. David and I closed the first hour with a little dip into the grab bag, bringing you guys some updates on the MLB award winners. And that kicks off hour number 2, David, and we still got a lot to tap into. One thing that we did want to update our friends and viewers and listeners on, third period is just about to begin over there in Sweden, and the Penguins, an Evgeny Malkin goal midway through the second period has them ahead 1-0. So low scoring affair. Preds trail 1-0 after 2 full over at the capital city over there in Sweden. David, let's dive right into it. Know you and Mo broke things down heavily yesterday with high school football, but first time you and I have had a chance to chat. Second round of the playoffs. Obviously, it's produced some intriguing matchups. Obviously, it's produced a lot of travel. That has been kind of well documented this week. But I'm curious, as we enter the final few hours before our kickoffs tonight, you reference where you're going, but what else across the state is kind of jumping out to you? What are you excited about for this round 2 this evening?
I feel like the big buzzword throughout this week was the word travel. You think about Green Hill, we'll stick in my area. They're playing Science Hill on the hill this tonight at Mount Juliet.
You could say King of the Hill, I suppose, right?
Yeah, it's 270 miles from Science Hill to Green Hill.
Whew.
So that's a long trip, but Green Hill, they picked up their first Class 6A win in the playoff history of their program last week against Smyrna, looking to make it 2 for 2 and make it to the quarterfinals where they could potentially face Oakland next week, and would be a heavyweight matchup to say the least. So looking forward to watching Green Hill tonight. I think some other matchups, at least locally, in Division II AAA, you got CPA playing against Innsworth. You have NBA playing against Brentwood Academy. If you like some private school flavor, PCA and Friendship Christian, the game I'll be at tonight. PCA, this is their first ever trip to the quarterfinals, looking to make their first ever trip to the semifinals. And I think in East Tennessee in Class 6A as well, if you can get a second round matchup between Maryville and Riverdale, that's a heavyweight matchup as well that is going to knock a really good football team out of the playoffs early.
Yeah, and that doesn't make up for some of the perhaps travel issues that a lot of the rest of the state is battling. But the fact that you can say, yeah, Riverdale, Maryville, second round. I mean that those are the blue bloods of blue bloods in terms of high school football in this state, and we get it, before Thanksgiving even arrives. So that one will be epic. One game that's not in our coverage area that I am definitely intrigued by because of this new schedule, David, is I don't know how this one will go. Unfortunately, I kind of have a hunch, but the Evil Empire, the Alcoa Tornadoes, by dropping their final game of the regular season, first time they've not won the region since 2012, which is crazy to think about. They go to Upperman tonight, and the Bees, Baxter. I don't know if any businesses will be open tonight in Baxter because I think the whole town literally might shut down and come cheer that one. That is going to be a fantastic game at the 4A level this evening.
Yeah, Bronson Chafin's a really good quarterback for Upperman. A talented young man. They've been on that state scene before. We were there a couple years ago when Pearl Coon beat them in the state championship game. Upperman's a really talented program. And they're going to be ready to play. And as you mentioned, if you're going to rob a bank or rob a store in Baxter, tonight might be the night because they're all going to be at the football game. But that's I can see the readjustment and the realignment of why people wanted this because the second round matchups are so intriguing, and you get away. We talked with Coach Kevin Creasy of Oakland yesterday. If the bracket was like last year, I believe they would be playing Riverdale for the second time in 3 weeks in the second round of the playoffs. That's a matchup that we've seen before. We've not seen in a couple years Oakland versus Bradley Central or Riverdale versus Maryville. So we're getting some new matchups: Science Hill versus Green Hill. Matchups that we haven't seen before. I know the travel sucks for the road team, but if you're the home team, you're not complaining so much.
Not complaining so much. I will be fascinated to see how many road teams get victories tonight, especially in those longer trips. And for instance, we mentioned Independence going over to Whitehaven tonight. Lawrence County is going to Knoxville Halls. And if memory serves me correct, their choices were either going to Knoxville Halls or going even further northeast. So, I mean, it is produce some intrigue, some drama in the second round. We know we're going to get it in rounds 3 and 4. As a guy that's not driving a crazy distance tonight, and as a guy that's, not in charge of writing checks at the school to pay for these trips, I kind of like this. If I were stuck going to Whitehaven tonight, maybe I'd sing a different tune. But for now, I kind of like it. It's going to be fun. And, David, we kicked off the show by saying no Thursday night games due to weather implications. Knock on wood, no crazy cancellations tonight, moving into games to Saturday. We get a full slate. Everybody is rolling top to bottom tonight on a Friday night. That feels great here in mid-November.
Yeah, it does. It should be a great night. The further best, and we're getting the best matchups. So really excited about that. And see who's right. Like I said, there's going to be some good football teams that have themselves at home and hanging up the shoulder pads tomorrow. So looking forward to the gauntlet as it continues.
Absolutely. While we're talking high school football, this is a story you usually kind of hear on Wild and Wacky Wednesday. And I had a blast with Calvin on Wednesday. Been a while since I'd tapped into my Wild and Wacky powers there, as it were. But we do stay in the realm of high school football, David. And this comes from the state of Mississippi. And this is a high school football story where Rankin, Mississippi, couldn't pick that one out on a map, but Rankin County Sheriff's Office, their deputies rather, posted on Monday and revealed that they made an arrest of a Robert Tyreek Landers, who, after a search, revealed 13 1-pound bags of marijuana, so 13 pounds of Mary Jane there. But wait for it, 7 pounds of methamphetamine. So now you're saying, okay, big whoop, who is Robert Tyreek Landers? Well, Robert Tyreek Landers is the head coach of Murrah High School in Jackson, Mississippi. They went 1-10 this season. I love this little nugget or this little throwaway line here from Football Scoop. No indication that his side gig, with the 13 pounds of grass and 7 pounds of meth had anything to do with his main job. They went 1-10, but arrested just a week after the season with a whole lot of drugs. That caught my eye, kind of semi-wild and wacky here.
Yeah, maybe a little karma there as well. Have a bad season, because of that maybe, but not a good situation at all, to say the least. Not a good season either, so not good.
No, football scoop, man. I gotta scroll and see who wrote this article. They were ruthless. They point out that the Mustangs allowed almost 40 points a game in virtually every of their 10 losses this season. So Scott Russell, who's the owner of Football Scoop, by the way, he chose violence when talking about that. But be careful out there if you're on the streets in Mississippi, as one of the high school football coaches arrested with 7 pounds of methamphetamine. David, speaking of college football, or speaking of football news and kind of transgressions, slap on the wrist, I feel like I should probably, as the resident Michigan fan, recuse myself from this story. But I couldn't help myself, David. Michigan State gets a 3-year probation. They're going to have to vacate 14 wins over the course of 3 seasons for violations that occurred during Mel Tucker's tenure. So just when you thought things couldn't get worse for a already downtrodden Michigan State program, they got slapped with 3 years probation and they got to vacate 14 wins, partner.
Yeah, and forgive me if I'm wrong here. I believe one of the first seasons of Mel Tucker up there in East Lansing actually went really, really well, and he got that massive
Yeah.
contract extension. And then things fell off the bus, to say the least. Michigan State, when I was growing up, I think about Kirk Cousins playing there, and being a really good player with Mike D'Antonio. They had some good teams, the Sparty, and then it just kind of went sideways, and they have not been the same over the last several years. And obviously, Michigan with Coach Harbaugh prior to him jumping back in the NFL with the Chargers. They basically own the state of Michigan, and heck, half the time the Big Ten going up against Ohio State as well those last couple of years. So East Lansing, Michigan State, it's kind of falling off the map a little bit.
Tough times. And, I don't want Michigan State, I do feel bad for the Sparty fans that I have in my life because, when things go bad there, they seemingly go really bad. But they did catch lightning in a bottle, obviously with the D'Antonio years you mentioned with Kirk Cousins, et cetera, but also that Mel Tucker era until things kind of went off the rails. And as a man and as a fellow human, I feel bad for the guy in his personal situation, but as a Michigan football fan, I'm kind of glad that guy's out of there because he was on the cusp of really getting them rolling, it felt like, again. So some might accuse me of kicking the Spartans when they're down. To them, I would say, I'm not sure what I would say. Let's just not even worry about that. But Michigan State handed out that 3-year probationary period and losing a couple of games as well. David, are you aware that Steph Curry, I know the NBA season just started, but are you aware that Steph Curry is a free agent now?
He is, and I saw that yesterday break across my phone on timeline my timeline rather, as he parted ways with Under Armour. Obviously, those two have been together a long, long time. So I'm sure, obviously, he has his own brand, the Curry brand, but if with a new shoe dealer or whatever, he's going to be in for a massive payday.
It's interesting, and after being kind of synonymous with Under Armour as their kind of real star athlete for so long, it's going to feel weird. It's going to be kind of awkward. And, these stories always fascinate me, the sports business kind of angle of it. But going independent, I think he's kind of built up enough star power, that he could probably pull that off. Some lesser players I would say maybe not. But as a sneaker free agent, he's going to try and apply his trade there. I found this part, the timing of this is what was crazy to me, David, because Nico Harrison just got fired, a couple days ago. And the other big snafu that everybody was quick to remind folks about, not only did he have the trade with Luka, but he was a part of the deal that kind of went sideways with Steph Curry and Nike at the outset of his career. So he kind of has two snafus there.
Poor guy.
Yeah, two tough PR looks there. And then I just found it odd or funny that the timing, 2 days later, Curry announces he's going to be a sneaker free agent. I'll be curious to see what them kicks look like when they come around the corner. Couple other stories that we wanted to wrap up. On Tuesday night, we had a massive slate of college basketball. And one of the darlings to start the season has been BYU. Their football team obviously has been undefeated until this past week. But BYU is going to be without one of their potential star players, likely for a little bit. We'll kind of wait and see how things happen. But starting forward, Kennard Davis Jr. for the 8th-ranked Cougs was arrested Thursday morning on suspicion of DUI following a car crash. Officers responding around 11:45 a.m. 11:45. That's not usually the time of day you're reading DUI stories, but 11:45 a.m. They recognize and arrest Davis, transport him to the police. A 20-year-old was released with, quote, minor injuries as a result of the crash. But what's interesting about this, David, is this is a guy that transferred in from Southern Illinois, and BYU seemingly has the pieces to maybe make a run at a real bona fide national championship run this season. But in addition to the legal troubles, they've got the old school BYU honor code that Davis is going to have to deal with. And so this will be fascinating for head coach Kevin Young, who on the cusp of maybe the biggest season in BYU history is now down one of his best players, maybe for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about their squad, though, they have a potential lottery pick on their team as well. Pronounce his name for me,
It's
please.
AJ Debus.
It's the
I can't
it's the
do
last
it.
name that gets me.
Debansa.
Okay, yeah, I would say the last name is what gets me, but he's a lottery pick, and he's a really good player. He's kind of one for one with Cam Boozer over at Duke, Nate Emmett over at Tennessee is maybe potential number one overall picks this coming summer. So this is a talented group, right? And you want to be building and ascending in the right direction. And news like this obviously kind of thwarts that, and it takes the attention and puts it in places that you don't want it to.
No, and yeah, and again with the honor code, we saw Retzlaff, the quarterback last year, who had great success at BYU, ran into honor code situations over the summer. That's why he is now the starting quarterback for Tulane. So, in addition to the legal issues, things might get a little more dicey in terms of basketball playing for Davis. So, something to monitor. Speaking while we're talking college basketball. Big NFL slate that we discussed in the first hour. We're going to talk college football in a second with Eric Henry of Horns 24/7. But if you're a hoop head, I know Calvin is watching and his ears just perked up here because we got another decent little slate, maybe not all on one night, but we got some big games coming up over the weekend. We saw Purdue win a close one down at Alabama last night. That was number 2 Purdue, number 8 Alabama. Tonight we got number 5 Arizona playing number 15 UCLA. And then on Sunday, I don't know how this is going to shape out because it's in Birmingham, but I kind of got a feeling we got number 1 Houston. Good luck, Stephen Pearl, right? The number 22 Auburn Tigers taking on the number 1 ranked Houston Cougars. Couple of big name and household name top 25 battles on the hardwood this weekend.
I love it because you get that competition early, right? You want to test your team early in the season in non-conference play to prepare them for conference play in the NCAA tournament as well. These are not games that can hurt your resume if you lose, but they sure can help it if you're on that number 2 seed line or that number 1 seed line and trying to get one of those top 2, places in the bracket. If you pick up a big win, particularly if you're Houston, let's shoot it straight. That's a home game for Auburn. In the state of Alabama. So that's a big win or for Kelvin Sampson and the crew if they can go into Alabama and Birmingham and defeat a really good Auburn team. It's moments early in the season. Obviously, after Bruce Pearl stepped down and handed the reins over to Steve. But Purdue with a big win against Alabama and the Crimson Tide and Nate Oates. Purdue's a really good team. Obviously, they're number 2 in the country, but they're going to be one to contend with when we get to March for sure.
Yeah, and to a larger point that you kind of were really making right there. I love the fact that these college basketball coaches, and maybe it's just because you play so many games and you get the whole postseason. Once you get in, you're in type deal. I love that they're not afraid now to go and play big opponents. And I mean, Purdue goes to Tuscaloosa and plays this game. It's not Georgia versus Clemson at Mercedes-Benz or LSU versus USC in football last year, but they're going to play it out in Vegas. I love the fact that they're going into hostile environments and challenging themselves because you're right. Number 1, you find out what your team is made of. And then number 2, if you are an Auburn sitting there at 22nd, and maybe you don't have a great season in what's going to be a really brutal SEC schedule, all of a sudden we're here on Selection Sunday, and the immediate thing you're going to point to is that win over Houston, right? I mean, that could single-handedly get you in the tournament or bump you up a couple of seed lines. I love the fact that coaches and schools get together and do this in this capacity in terms of college basketball.
It matters. The strength, the SEC was historic last year, and it's a juggernaut. And night after night, maybe outside of South Carolina last year, you could lose to any other SEC team. And so having big wins on your resume is huge. And so giving yourself an opportunity in non-conference play to pick up wins over potentially conference champions of other leagues,
Yeah.
that's big to have.
Absolutely. And so we'll keep tabs on. I was looking to see when Vanderbilt plays next again, but I don't know that they have
Saturday,
a
I
game.
believe, right?
They got a Saturday one. Yeah, you're right. I missed. I skipped right over Arkansas Pine Bluff. Forgive me, Pine Bluff, who's coming in 0-4. Best of luck versus the Commodores and Coach Byington. But that'll be interesting. Texas plays the University of Kansas City on Saturday. But that is not the Texas game that we want to talk about with our next guest. When we come back from this quick timeout, Eric Henry from Horns 24/7 is going to shift gears. We'll talk college football, and we will talk Texas going on the road to Georgia. You're not going to want to miss it when Eric, David, and I return right after this on Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Oh, baby. I can feel it. The weekend is in sight, David Wilson. We are halfway home here in hour number 2 of Main Street Sports Today. We're presented, as always, by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. But before we get into the weekend and before we kind of begin our college football feast, as it were, a little Friendsgiving, if you will, in terms of college football action this weekend, we wanted to catch up with our good friend Eric Henry of Horns 24/7. Kind of like Ben in the first hour. We hadn't spoke to Eric in a little while. And first of all, he's got his Rays gear going, which we love.
He's going old school.
Yeah, he's got the throwback right there. That's how you know he's a pro's pro, folks. Welcome, Eric Henry.
What is going on, fellas? Yeah, listen, I'm very excited to dive into the monumental matchup between the Texas Longhorns and the Kansas City Roos on the basketball. Oh, wait, is that not why I'm here?
Wrong sport. Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
Georgia Bulldogs. Let's try that again. Yeah, that is why I'm here in hot Atlanta. Already had a good meal. Looking forward to another one tomorrow, folks. Real quick, before we dive into things, I got to read off to you this pregame meal that's being served at Georgia. Because if this doesn't scream just goodness, we've got, as I pull it up here super quick, we've got hand-carved roasted turkey, southern dressing, mac and cheese, country-style green beans, Hawaiian rolls, and dessert will be southern pecan pie and pumpkin pie. It doesn't get much better than that, right? Does it?
You got room on the pass list?
Yeah, seriously. And I like the fact that Georgia's rolling out a menu for the press
Yes.
box. Back in my day, you just showed up and you got a hot dog if you
You
were
got a
lucky.
hot dog,
maybe,
right,
maybe
Wade?
an ice cream sandwich in Neyland Stadium, and that's about it, right?
It was either that and I don't want to disparage any other schools, but Wade, I was covering Conference USA for a long time. At Floyd Stadium, it'd just be the hot dog.
And it did not take long for the first MTSU diss of the afternoon to perhaps arrive, but more on that later with Eric Henry. Eric, let's talk Texas, and not versus UMKC, but yes, versus Georgia. And this is a game that I opened our show today talking with David, kind of has snuck up on me because didn't really forget about Texas, but we kind of have put them off to the side up until the last 2 or 3 weeks. And therefore, this game, which in the preseason looked like maybe your game of the year in college football, it's kind of back on, but it kind of snuck up on me this weekend.
No, it's interesting you say that way, because I would say the same thing, right? I think I've spent, as someone who covers this team day in, day out, I've spent the past month trying to figure out what is this Texas football team? Who are the 2025 Longhorns, right? And, at the end of the day, as the calendar reads mid-November, I think the thing that I've realized more than anything else is they're writing their own story. They're not the 2024 Texas Longhorns. They're not the 2023 Texas Longhorns. What I mean by that is, guys, you don't have the veterans who have been through the proverbial wars, of 5 and 7, Steve Sarkisian's first year, of the Tom Herman era. You don't have those veterans who have started, in the offensive line 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the case of Hayden Connor and Jake Majors together, right? This is an entirely new group who are writing their own story. And if you choose to view them through the prism of 25 wins over the last 2 years, which is, of course, what Texas did in 2023 and 2024 combined, consecutive years of sending double-digit players to the NFL, then you may think, man, this doesn't feel like the Texas of, old or quote-unquote, recent history, I guess I should say, right? But if you view this as the second generation, and I want to say this very specifically, maybe the first incarnation of Steve Sarkisian's Longhorns, because, again, you don't have guys who were on Tom Herman's roster from 2020, right? This team is writing its own story. If you view it from that lens, I think got a really intriguing matchup on Saturday.
The easy joke to make or easy question to ask, Eric, is Texas back? We've been used to asking that for so long, but even in this season, we're not even to Thanksgiving yet, and it feels like they have climbed a little bit of a mountaintop here, only to meet the big final boss in the sense of the Georgia Bulldogs. And covering the team so closely, and you mentioned, you're kind of still trying to figure out questions and identity. What have you seen over these last 2 or 3 weeks in particular that you really like? And what have you seen maybe that still you want to see a little more out of?
Yeah, I guess I'll go good cop, bad cop, start with the positive. What I've liked about this group, and it's not a sexy answer, guys, but again, I think in keeping with the theme of this year's team writing its own story, it's a very real answer. The resolve, okay? When you talk with Steve Sarkisian before the season, right, a big thing he talks about is culture. And I know that sounds very coach speaky, but the point that I've at least gleaned that Steve is trying to make is each team has to find kind of its own makeup, right? Are they the type of group that when things get tough, they're going to fold? Or are they the type of group that's going to remember, hey, this is what we were in the past? And as I talked about the previous groups, they could look back to 5 and 7 and say, hey, we're not going back to that. Guys, this year's group, all they knew is winning, right? The Ryan Wingos, Colin Simmons, the guys who are freshmen and sophomores on this team, all they knew was winning, right? So what happens when you get punched in the mouth? They go to Kentucky. That game obviously did not go the way that Texas fans or players would wanted it to go. You squeak out a 16-13 win, but they win. You go to Mississippi State. You fall behind 21 points in the fourth quarter twice. They come back and win, right? That is something that you have to appreciate, because quite frankly, they could have come back to Austin prior to the last game against Vanderbilt as a 4-4 unranked team. That would have been the nuclear scenario, right? They found a way to win those games. I guess in terms of on the field, Arch Manning's ascension, that is something that you have to like. He is growing as a quarterback, and I'll probably get into more. I'm sure you'll ask me about it at some point, Wade. So I won't, go too long. But you have to appreciate him growing and developing as a quarterback. Lastly, this defense is still performing very well. In terms of what I didn't like, offensively, it's still a work in progress. Okay, I mean they can't run the ball. They haven't been able to run the ball against Power 4 teams. I think they're ranked somewhere around 85th or 90th in the nation, but trust me, it's been worse than that if you take out the production against Sam Houston State and San Jose State. So that's been challenging. Another thing is the offensive line play up until last week against Vanderbilt had been abysmal. Arch Manning, part of the reason why he has had an up and down years, because he's been running for his life the entire season, right? That has seemingly changed because Steve Sarkisian and offensive coordinator Kyle Flood, they've made the decision to go with a veteran lineup. Instead of going with Nick Brooks, true freshman Nick Brooks at left guard, they've decided to stick with Connor Robertson at center, who was filling in for a fellow senior in Cole Hudson. With Cole's return, they move him back to left guard, a position he started 13 games at in 2022. Now you have fourth-year senior, fourth-year senior, fourth-year senior from left guard, center, right guard. Then you have your two tackles in Brandon Baker and Trevor Gooseby, who are second-year player and third-year player. Goosby's a third-year player. Baker's a second-year player. You have more of a veteran group as opposed to a younger group on the offensive line.
Eric, you mentioned just Arch Manning and the offensive struggles for this Texas offense led by Steve Sarkisian. I don't think there's any quarterback in the nation that entered with so much hype. I mean, people were already basically giving him the Heisman Trophy before the year started, and really struggled against Ohio State and the Matt Patricia-led defense and Caleb Downs the first week of the year. Maybe talk about how the struggles that they've experienced on offensive football have helped maturate him as a quarterback and help him develop, and how he can use those lessons this late in the year. I mean, they're still right on the doorstep of a college football playoff berth. How can he use those lessons to help him these last couple weeks?
I really appreciate you asking the question that way, because most times when I do radio spots and I'm asked with Arch Manning, it's what's wrong with Arch, right? Why isn't he the Heisman Trophy candidate, so on and so forth? And I always say, depends on what prism you want to view it through. Those of us who were in Austin over the offseason saw him, a very talented five-star quarterback, but he's not LeBron James. He's not Victor Wembanyama. He's not stick him in day one, all of a sudden you have an all-star, right? He is, just like any other five-star QB talent, someone who has to develop, someone who has to grow. And if you take a look at the five-star quarterbacks in his class, he's the only one out of the top 9 rated by 24/7 Sports who's still with the same program, right? Guys have transferred all across the country. So in specificity to your question, how has it helped kind of mature him? I'm sure Arch and, quite frankly, Archie Manning, right, and Cooper Manning would have wanted to happen a different way, but he has run for his life and has gotten beat up all season. As we all know, right, he suffered a concussion in the Mississippi State game. That's why he was a game time decision against Vanderbilt. I think it's trial by fire. Okay, you're learning this kid is tough. He is not some rich kid who I don't want to throw in any other name. I had a name that came to mind of a former highly talented prospect who I think got the label of being soft, but he's not that. Okay, he is not afraid to take a hit. He's earned the respect of his teammates because he doesn't quit. Okay, he had all the reason in the world to get frustrated at the offensive line when he's getting sacked 6 times against Florida and 7 times against other opponents, but he does not quit. I think that's certainly helped mature him. And then lastly, from a sheer football perspective, knowing how to stand in there and deliver a pass when the rush is coming at him, right? It's one thing to do it when you've got great protection, but Arch Manning has really shown that, listen, whether it's a blitz up the middle, an A-gap blitz, whether it's pressure off the edge, whether it's scrambling, he can make all the throws, especially when the rush is coming at him. And I think that'll be needed this Saturday against Kirby Smart and Georgia defense.
And Eric, you mentioned some really talented players on the defensive side of the football for Texas. They're going to go against a talented offense with Georgia and quarterback Gunnar Stockton, who started for them last year in the college football playoff and is really kind of taking that next step this year. Kind of talk about some keys defensively for Texas attacking that group.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about Gunnar Stockton starting. Gunnar Stockton kind of came onto the scene against Texas, right? Carson Beck was knocked out in the SEC title game. Gunnar Stockton took over, won that game, and the rest is history. But in terms of matchups, I think the number one matchup I would keep an eye on is Georgia wide receiver Zachariah Branch versus Texas slot cornerback Grayson Littleton. Of course, we know Zach Branch, a former 5-star recruit, began his career with USC, is leading Georgia in receptions with 56. The next closest Georgia receiver in terms of receptions has 26, right? So the ball is going to Zach Branch. But he's a guy, if you take a look at his numbers, he's got just over 500 yards receiving. A little over 400 of that comes yards after catch, meaning they throw him the ball behind the line of scrimmage, at the line of scrimmage, and say, hey, go make that first man miss, kind of extension of a run play, and then go, pick up yards. Grayson Littleton is Texas's slot corner, a true freshman, actually from my hometown, Tampa, Florida. Played for my old high school coach, Mark Cannon, or Wiregrass Ranch. So a quick shout out there.
Come on.
But Quick shout out there. But it's going to be, a unique challenge for a true freshman who earned the job coming out of camp, guys. So that's how confident they felt, Texas defensive coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski and Steve Sarkisian felt in Grayson Littleton. Him and safeties Michael Taft, Jelani McDonald, can they get him down when the ball's in his hands quickly? The other matchup, I would say, Colin Simmons. Colin Simmons coming off the edge, the 5-star edge rusher, has got 6.5 sacks over his last 4 games. How will Georgia be able to keep him off of Gunnar Stockton? Because that'll be key.
Talking with our good friend Eric Henry of Horns 24/7, breaking down that mammoth game in the SEC tomorrow as the Longhorns travel between the hedges, take on the Georgia Bulldogs. Eric, it seems like both of these teams, maybe not necessarily peaking, but man, it feels like Georgia is kind of their defense maybe just never gets to as good as what we saw a couple years ago, but everything else can get better, and they're kind of playing some of their best ball. Is this game going to be, I hate to boil it down to the simplest terms, is this game going to just come down to 1 or 2 possessions and maybe who can execute 1 or 2 key plays? Or is there some angle or some advantage for either side in your mind Saturday night?
Yeah, wait, I don't think you're off base when you view it that way, right? First off, when you're talking about 2 programs who have 5-star talents all across, the roster, right? The margin for error or margin in terms of talent disparity is not really there, right? So there's that aspect. The second thing I'll say is this. You're talking about 2 programs in terms of offensively. You don't really see that superstar, right? That one player that's going to take over the game. You have guys who are highly talented, right? There's no shade on Gunnar Stockton, no shade on Arch Manning, Zachariah Branch, Ryan Wingo, the list goes on. But you don't have that one superstar that you say, hey, that guy's a difference maker. So to your point or to your question, I do think this is a game that comes down to a handful of possessions, a handful of opportunities, right? A couple of missed tackles here or there, maybe a forced fumble. Can you recover it? An interception. I think especially for Texas, let me outline this specifically. What sank Texas early in the season and what sank them against Georgia was the fact that the defense would hand them short fields and they'd be able to do nothing with it. Right? Whether it was escaping with 3 points as they had to settle for many times in last year's meetings or this season, just quite frankly, not getting anything, right? That I think could be a difference maker. If you're gifted a short field, you have to find a way to convert. You're talking about a Texas defense that's top 5, top 10 in the nation, top 5 in many statistical categories, and a Georgia defense that's top 10, top 15. And sure, while they may not be the Georgia defense of years past, they still are really talented. And they're only allowing 100 yards on the ground. So it's not like you're going to be able to sustain long drives. So if you are gifted a short field, whether it's via special teams, via return, via a turnover, you have to find a way to get 7 points.
Eric, Georgia is a top 5 team in the country. They're 8-1, but by no means are they this unbeatable team. They've kind of had to survive by the skin of their teeth for several weeks. You think about that overtime game up in Neyland at Tennessee. You think about the Ole Miss game. You think about falling behind and the cocktail party with Florida just leaving them in the game. It seems like if Texas can get a score early and grab the lead and play from ahead, you feel like with their defense they have the opportunity to maybe limit Georgia and not allow them to come back in the game that they've done against these other teams in the SEC.
That's a crucial key. It's actually, if I can do a cheap plug, I wrote a piece this morning up on horn247.com, my 5 pressing questions for the Longhorns in terms of finding a victory. That was one of them. You talk about getting a score early. If there's one thing this Georgia defense, again, while they have performed very well, maybe not to the level of years past, but they still perform very well. They've allowed 5 opening drive touchdowns from opponents this year, right? So there is an opportunity if you can put together, and maybe it's the opening drive or a first quarter touchdown, an area that Texas has struggled in this year, that'll serve it to be twofold. One, you get on the board and get some momentum offensively. Secondly, it allows this Texas defense, and guys, if you happen to see that Texas Vandy game 2 weeks ago, that was the best version of Texas' defense for 3 quarters, because we all know Diego Pavia and company, they came back and made a game of it at the end. But it was the best version of that defense for 3 quarters because Texas scored 17 first quarter points. That allowed Colin Simmons to pin his ears back and rush. That allowed linebacker Anthony Hill to go and rush and do their thing. And for defense coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski to call it aggressively, right? When that defense can play aggressive-minded, that kind of unlocks another level of that defense. So to your point, to your question, yes, if Texas can get an early score in a game that I think points are going to be a premium, are going to be at a premium, I think that'll be huge.
Eric Henry of Horns 24/7 talk with us. And Eric, You've seen Oklahoma this year, maybe not this version of Oklahoma, but I'm curious your thoughts. Have they turned things around enough that they're alive? Maybe dog on the road at Alabama on Saturday afternoon.
I think they're alive, but in a game like that, I think it comes down to quarterbacks, right? Wade, I talk about my time covering Conference USA. I covered FIU, former Miami, former Miami head coach Butch Davis was the head coach at FIU. Of course, Butch Davis coached at Miami, coached with the Cowboys. Butch would say, hey, Jimmy Johnson had a saying. Sometimes in games like these, whoever has the best quarterback, that's who's going to win, right? And in my mind, I take a look at Alabama versus Oklahoma. This is no shade on John Mateer. I just think Ty Simpson's a better quarterback. Yes, Oklahoma does seem to have turned the corner a little bit. I know they were banged up, and that's a team, guys, that, listen, give Brent Venables and company credit, right? They needed to come out and have a strong season to quiet any talk of Brent Venables' job being,
versus a murderer's row of a schedule too.
No doubt about it, Wade. I'm glad you mentioned that. Their schedule has not been easy since they've joined the SEC, and they needed a solid year. They've done that, right? And I think that they've done enough for Brent Venables, barring things falling apart, for him to keep his job. But I just think in this scenario, there's not enough that I see from Oklahoma to overcome clearly a better quarterback in Ty Simpson.
With that being also said, Eric, we got to ask, the question that Texas playoff, is it as simple as win versus Georgia or win versus Texas A&M and they're in your mind? Is it as simple as that?
In my mind, yes. It's kind of a double-pronged issue because I think a lot of Texas fans have been so hyper-focused on getting back to the SEC title game and winning it after losing last year. They're like, man, if we lose one more, we're out of the SEC title hunt. That is true, barring some crazy scenario. But in terms of the college football playoff hunt, I firmly believe 5 SEC teams will be in. Who knows? Maybe it'll be 6. I don't think 6 deserve to go in, but I think 5 for sure will get in. And I do think if Texas you got to beat Arkansas. Let's just establish that right now. You lose to Arkansas, you can't make a case for making the college football playoff. But if we assume that's a victory and you split one of the 2 games with Texas A&M or Georgia, Texas will be in the college football playoff.
I'm glancing through this too, Eric, and it's fascinating that we have you on as I'm doing this. And, I was searching for Texas on The Athletic. I like looking at their projections, and things of that nature. We could be looking at a wild scenario with Texas A&M, Texas Tech, North Texas, SMU if they get squirrely, in the ACC and win the league somehow, and then obviously the Longhorns. I mean, do we even play the games outside of the Lone Star State in the playoffs if half the field comes from Texas in your mind?
Well, Wade, I'm going to shout out, our parent company, CBS Sports, who had a projection of Texas as the 10 seed, traveling to Texas Tech for a first-round matchup, and then playing against Texas A&M in the next round. So to your point, yeah, I do think it could get interesting with a lot of Texas teams. I'll tell you this much right now. You want to talk about a meltdown of fan bases, just of nuclear proportion. Texas and Texas Tech playing in Lubbock, especially after the way the last meeting went, the final meeting as Big 12, conference mates, but Texas just running Texas Tech out of the building. Yeah, that'll be something. That will be
Interesting to watch as we come down the stretch. While we got you too, it just dawned on me, we haven't brought up Texas A&M, and obviously you haven't got to that game yet, but I'm curious, what is your initial read without having, really dug too deep into them thus far? Because they just keep finding ways to win games and impressively at the moment.
Wade, we do a SEC kind of a poll of all the beat writers and a couple of our national guys at 24/7 Sports. I do vote in that poll, and I voted Texas A&M as the best team in the SEC probably since about week 4. I was dead wrong, guys. You talk about young, inexperienced quarterbacks entering the year who are trying to find their footing. I put all my money in the DJ Lagway camp. I thought DJ Lagway, I was so impressed with him at SEC Media Days. I thought he was going to find a way to get this thing going. Obviously, that has not worked out for him, not worked out for Billy Napier and company. I wasn't as high on Marcel Reed. I just didn't see it, right? I saw a great athlete. I saw someone who I think you can build an offense around and find ways to use him, to utilize him to win games, but I think he'd be the reason why you can win games. Marcel Reed is doing more than enough offensively, and of course that defense is legit. Give Mike Elko and company credit. A&M's for real. I believe that. I think if Texas and Texas A&M were playing tomorrow, I would pick Texas A&M to win that game.
but we won't get to play it tomorrow. We might get to see Texas coming off the heels of a victory between the hedges tomorrow. Yet again, every time Eric shows up on this show, by the way, folks, it's basically with a big game, which, Texas is playing in a lot of big games, so it's kind of inherent. But big game, Eric has arrived on the show. But before we get you out of here, we mentioned two different references on this show, show that takes place close to Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Our beloved Blue Raiders have fallen on very, very hard times, Eric. And so I'll give you 30 seconds to reference the FIU trouncing of MTSU last week. And I'll also give you 10 seconds to maybe tell us why Western Kentucky will do the same to our beloved Blue Raiders, Mo and I, this week.
Here's the deal, man. After covering FIU for the time I did, listen, I saw a lot of Middle Tennessee State just whoopings, or them putting the whooping on FIU, specifically at Floyd Stadium. Brent Stockstill, Asher O'Hara. It didn't matter who was at quarterback. Middle Tennessee found a way to win. So I will shout out FIU, Willie Simmons and company. That's the first time FIU has won at Floyd Stadium since 2011. Okay,
wow.
So it's been a long time. So, shout out to FIU. And listen, I got a lot of love for the Middle Tennessee State fan base. All right, they're always great fans. At times I've made the trip. I'm sure there will be many more Ascend Federal Credit Union first downs in the near future. It just might not be this year, but I liked the hire of Derek Mason. So I want to think things can get turned around, but obviously it's been a tough sledding. And as far as the matchup coming up with Western Kentucky, I also have a relationship with Tyson Helton. All right, I think he's a really good coach. Someone who gets a lot out of his teams. And I don't know that I see a Blue Raider victory coming this week. So just hang in there. Nick Vadiato, man, I can't believe Nick Vadiato's still playing quarterback. Feels like he's been around forever. Hope he gets to kind of finish his career on somewhat of a high note. But
him and Pavi are going toe to toe just to see who can last it out longer.
No doubt about that, Wade. But yeah, I hope good times are coming for the folks there in Murfreesboro. So I always enjoyed my trips.
Okay, well, thank you. You put me a little bit more at peace there, even though I don't foresee a win tomorrow. But Eric, I do want to say thank you for joining the show today, and we are certainly envious that you'll be between the hedges with that Thanksgiving menu rolled right out in front of you tomorrow. So always good to catch up, brother. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Appreciate it, fellas. I will indulge for everyone here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you again to Eric Henry from Horns 24/7. Mammoth showdown in the SEC. Believe it or not, folks, that will be part of the 10-game wonder slate. Yes, each and every single Friday, we pick 10 winners against the spread across the sport of college football. Mo is not on the show live today, but don't you worry, folks. He has his picks waiting at the ready. David and I will give you ours. Mo will drop in his as well, and we will get you 10 winners across the college football landscape coming up this weekend. It's going to be fun, folks, so come on back. Final segment of Main Street Sports Today comes your way right after this.
The winning just got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
There's a line that links us all. Most of the time, we don't even think about it, but it's everywhere. Illuminating our neighborhoods, empowering our businesses, and helping us to recharge. Whether it comes from our grids, the sun, or a kind heart, we believe in the power of good energy. And as your family and region continue to grow, you can trust that we'll always be there for you. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
What a show it's been thus far, folks. Final stretch here on Main Street Sports today, the weekend warm-up edition of MSST, brought to you by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's David Wilson. I'm Wade Dealey, producer Mark Rogers, making the magic happen behind the glass. David, it's been a fun afternoon, but on a Friday, we always like to close it out. We didn't intentionally schedule Eric Henry for our next to last segment, but it could not have worked out better because he's got the college football juices and feel goods. You know, my limbs are kind of tingling here. I'm ready for some college football action, and we got a chance to pick 10 games against the spread, a chance to go 10-0 on a little thing we like to call the Wonder Slate. As I recall, or if I'm remembering correctly, this is your maiden voyage on the Wonder Slate. Is that correct?
It is, and I got a good slate, and maybe I'll get baptized by a little bit of fire though at the same time. So we will see what happens. We got some tricky matchups. I'm looking at some of these, and number 19 Virginia, maybe without their quarterback, going on the road to Duke. So maybe some tricky slates that you guys got picked out for me.
It's going to be interesting. Thanks to producer Mark at the bottom. You can also see Mo and I are literally in a dead heat. We've taken two different paths to get there, but we're both sitting there at 64-48 with one push. So this will be the interesting week here. Disregard that at the top where it says week 8. That was my boo-boo editing the document for 2 out of the last 3 weeks. So sorry about that, Mark. But before we get started, though, all of our odds are brought to you each and every single week by our friends at Circa Sportsbook, part of the Mint Gaming Hall up there at Kentucky Downs, right across the border, up there near Terry McCormick Way. So make sure you check out our friends at the Circa Sportsbook, bringing you our official odds. You're right, David. I promise I didn't do this on purpose. We list these games chronologically, partner. But right out of the gate, I told you were going to be part of the Wonder Slate, and you were foaming at the mouth ready to pick Notre Dame. Well, you get a chance to do so here. Number 9 Notre Dame is at number 22 Pitt. It's an 11 a.m. kickoff on ABC. College Game Day will be there. And David, the Domers are favored by 12.5. Who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to take Notre Dame here, and here's why. This is a big game for them to stay in that hunt. Obviously, right now they're in, if it started today, the college football playoff, but they need to leave no doubt on their schedule. This is probably going to be the last ranked matchup on their schedule. On the road at Pitt, College Game Day, a great opportunity for Jeremiah Love and CJ Carr to leave no doubt, as I've said, and prove not only to the country but to the committee that they deserve to be in the college football playoff. When you think about it, their lone 2 losses against Texas A&M at the buzzer, a game that they probably should have won. And then obviously week 1 against Miami. This is a talented Notre Dame group. And Coach Narduzzi at Pitt has kind of already told the nation, his team doesn't really need to win this game. Doesn't need to win this game to maybe make the college football playoff. So Notre Dame, all their wins this year have been by at least double digits. I'll take Notre Dame.
Yep, I'm taking the Domers as well. To your point, I found it fascinating that the spread's only 12.5, but Narduzzi said he's cool with his team losing by 100 earlier this week. So somebody's off track there. For the record, Mo picks Notre Dame as well. So all 3 of us, David, myself, and Mo, are on Notre Dame, minus 12.5 there. Second game. This one is 11 a.m. kickoff on FS1. Sneaky good matchup. Arizona visiting number 25 Cincinnati. And David, Cincinnati, the home team, is favored by 6.5.
I like Cincinnati. I think they've had a sneaky, really good year. A top 25 team. I'll take Cincinnati.
I'm going to pick the Bearcats as well. And something tells me that Arizona might be scrappy and this might be a game. I don't know. I just feel like if Cincinnati is kind of about that action, this number would be a little higher. So my alarm bells are up, but I'm going to take Cincinnati, as is Mo. So all 3 of us are in lockstep here through the first 2 games. This is a rarity. We don't get to do this very often, but we will get a chance to talk FCS. Yes, FCS football. And it's not your everyday FCS opponent. Undefeated Tennessee Tech. Yes, the boys from Cookeville travel to Kentucky, and there is a line on this, believe it or not. You can bet on anything, I guess. It's 12:30, your kickoff time. You can see it on SEC Network. David, Kentucky is favored by 21.5 versus undefeated Tennessee Tech, excuse me.
They are, and they just absolutely trounced Florida last week. But you know what, Wade? Cumberland played Tennessee Tech for their first game, and so I got to read a little bit and witness a little bit about the Golden Eagles. I'm going to take Tennessee Tech to cover here, and to get below the 21.5. I'm going Golden Eagles.
Yeah, I feel bad now because Mo is taking Tech as well. You know, I don't want accused of being a hater. But I don't know. Tennessee Tech's schedule, no disrespect to Cumberland and some of the other folks, there's a reason they're only ranked 7th in the FCS poll, and a lot of it deals with their schedule. They're undefeated, and they're undefeated for a reason. But I think Kentucky can win this game, 31-10. Or excuse me, not 31-10. That'd cover for you guys, but give me something like 34-10 rather, and maybe we sneak it out. But I hope it's a good game, and I hope Tech does play well, but I'm taking Kentucky. Cruising along in our final 5 minutes here. Big game, 2 ranked foes, 2 massive sets of college football royalty will tangle when it's number 11 Oklahoma at number 4 Alabama. This is an SEC clash. Still feels kind of weird saying that after all those years apart, but Alabama, David, is favored by 5.5 in this game that kicks off at 2:30 on ABC.
Yeah, absolutely. And what our good friend from Eric Henry from Horns 247 just said, who do you trust in big games like this with the quarterback position? I'm a bigger fan of Ty Simpson than John Mateer, so I'm going Roll Tide in this one.
I was afraid you were going to say that, and man, I love Eric Henry. He's one of my favorite guests we ever had on this show, and I feel bad, but something is up with this Oklahoma defense, and I got burned a couple of weeks ago, and they didn't cover the number, but they still won. I think Oklahoma finds a way. I'm feeling a weird like 24-20 game that Alabama wins, but does not cover the spread. Mo and David are on Alabama at 5.5. I'm on OU at 5.5. This is a 2:30 kickoff. History in the making here. I don't know that we've picked a Big Ten network game before. I'm kind of surprised that 2 ranked teams in the Big Ten are on BTN. But number 21 Iowa is at number 17 USC, and USC, David, is favored by 7.5.
They are, and I will keep this quick because we're butting up against the hour. I need this one for my Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They have a 10-point win over USC for Notre Dame to continue to look good in the CFP eyes. USC needs to keep winning and potentially make the Big Ten championship game. Give me fight on in this one, USC.
Yep, I'm on USC as well, and Mo is taking Iowa. I don't know if he saw something he liked last week versus Oregon, but Mo is taking Iowa. David and I are on USC. We'll close quickly. MTSU's at Western Kentucky. The line is 13.5, favoring the Hilltoppers.
Give me Western Kentucky. Give me the Hilltoppers over MTSU.
Yeah, I'm taking WKU as well. Mo submitted these picks to us via email, and not only did he pick Western Kentucky, he also wrote "ugh" out to the side. We don't like to do it very often, Mo and I at least, but we will. It's business after all. MTSU, best of luck, but I think Western Kentucky covers that number. A game that David referenced a moment ago, Duke. Yes, Duke, still alive in the thick of the ACC title chase, and they host number 19 Virginia, and Duke, David, is favored by 4.5 points in this 2:30 kickoff.
And part of the reason why is that Virginia's quarterback may or may not play. He's in concussion protocol, I believe. I will take Duke here at home to cover.
I'm taking Duke as well. Not that I don't trust Virginia, but maybe I don't trust Virginia. I like Duke. Give me them, and Mo is on Duke as well. So all 3 of us are with the Dukies. This is a big game in terms of the last gasp maybe for the Group of 5 playoff bid for these teams. Memphis is on the road at East Carolina, and ECU, David, is favored by 3.
Give me the road team. Give me Memphis. I watched that game versus UAB a couple weeks ago. It did not look pretty, but I also watched them beat Arkansas. Which Memphis team are we going to get? I think we're going to get the one that beat Arkansas. Give me Memphis.
This is a straight homer pick from my boy Michael Felder, who turned us on to ECU a couple weeks ago. Felder, I got your back. I'm going to take ECU -3. Mo is taking Memphis. Wouldn't be surprised if Memphis wins for the things you just said. Chance for me to look silly here, but I'm taking ECU. We close with 2 games. Boise State at San Diego State. San Diego State is a 1.5 point favorite. 9:30, you got to stay up for this one, David Wilson.
Give me Boise State. I'll take Broncos in this one over San Diego State on the road.
I'm taking San Diego State. I haven't seen really much of these 2 teams, but I think playing at home will give them a little bit of a boost. Mo and David are both on San Diego State. We close rapid fire. Number 10, Texas. Number 5, Georgia. 6.5 is the line. Favor the Bulldogs.
We just talked Texas with our friend Eric Henry. No offense to Eric, though. I'm going to take the Go Dogs and Kirby Smart at home. Home being the difference. Give me Georgia.
I'm taking Texas. Mo is taking Texas, and that will take us to the end of today's show. David, it's been an honor. Thank you for filling in on this Friday. Best of luck to everybody this weekend. Go out and see a high school football game. We will return at 2 o'clock for another episode on Monday of Main Street Sports Today, presented by COAF London.